Hello everyone, welcome to a new banner review. This time we'll be looking at the Chosen Ones as well as Bantu, because, might as well. So, I'm gonna go from worst to best as usual, and then keep Bantu for the end, because he's technically not part of the banner, so there is not really an incentive to prioritize him, since he's part of the 3 to 4 star pool. Anyway, let's get started, and we'll start with Fina. Yes, I genuinely do think Fina is the worst unit of the banner. I know it comes as a shock to some people, but the fact of the matter is, the most you can get out of her, okay, is the fact that you can Vantage one-shot, like Brave Lyn and I guess Reinhardt, though in both of those units' cases, you need to be in Vantage range, you need to have double Brazen attack, typically, at least for Reinhardt. It's not a problem for Lyn, but Reinhardt can be a problem because he has a weird amount of bulk in defense. Especially now that Sturdy Blow is a seal. So, yeah, it's kind of awkward when you have to rely on being under 75% for Reinhardt, and for Brave Lyn, it can kind of work if she doesn't run Brave Bow, of course. Yeah, in AR, she's not that relevant. As far as Arena goes, well, she is a dedicated Serdar counter. You can literally just bait. Oh, and also another problem with Brave Lyn and Reinhardt. It requires sacrificing Distinct Counter for her, and on top of that, no C Disrupt, at least for Lyn. Yeah, I would not invest that much in a Dancer. I would invest that much in a tank that would kill more than 2 units. Let's just put it that way. Anyway. So, as for the other thing, she's a dedicated Serdar counter. After all, Serdar makes her lose 20 HP because of Sinmara. This pushes her in Vantage range instantly, and also in Brazen range. Again, you can combo double Brazen attack, pushing your attack to 65, 71 attack with buffs, which surely will one-shot Serdar, and if there's other armored unit, typically will one-shot them unless they're blue, because Legendary Tiki, Brave Hector, and so on tends to have too much attack. You can also combo or weapon with Fierce Stance or Attack Death Bond. Fierce Stance is probably the best one, since it just doesn't really require any setup. But, like I said, Brazen Attack Death is better because of Serdar, which gives you a niche Serdar counter. Though, honestly, if I'm putting it down there, you would just be like, take an Armor Smasher, refine it to attack, you basically have this weapon for Arena. You just don't have the Vantage effect. But, like, let me put it this way. What happens if I run double Brazen Attack Death on, say, Ignace, for example, with an Armor Smasher? Oh, look at that, Serdar gets one shot. Same concept. You might just lose 20 HP because of Sinmara and then get hit for less than 10 damage. It doesn't matter, you still one shot. This is not exactly unique. So if you're going with that out of the way, what makes a Dancer the most useful outside of having gray waves, if you don't have gray waves, it's typically a weapon that works with dancing. Berkut and Azura were both failures because Legendary Azura are a thing. And in that case, Legendary Azura can buff 5 across the board, which completely denies Berkut's weapon, as well as PA Azura and Elysian Traveler Olivia. So with that in mind, if you don't even have a weapon to buff on the same level as Legendary Azura, if you have a weapon that's based on killing with a Dancer, I have to say that's weird. There are some Dancer with which it works. Ironically, one of them is red, and Said's unit is basically everything Fina would want to be. So, yeah, there's that. Let's just go in comparison. Now, two of them make sense, and then the third one I can expect people to be like, wait, why? It's mostly due to their weapons. They both have an armor slash cav effective weapon. Which I have to say nowadays, cavalry units are probably the weakest type of units. There are some shining individual in there, like Reinhardt, Bravelin, but if you remove like the less than 5 units that are worth it, like Brave Eliwood, I guess Sirius to some extent, because he's basically Eliwood but with an easier time running Desperation Gale Force. If you take these two, then you take out Yarne, then you take out Reinhardt, then you take out Bravelin, and I guess Veronica, so 6. You don't really have a great roster of units, do you? Most of those cav units just don't really get to use any really cool skill, which means that they are very straightforward, which means they are very boring. To this day, the only exclusive skill cavs have are Own, Goad, Fortify, and Ward Cavalry. This is 2K19, guys. Why? Even the low skills are not exactly exclusive to them. Because infantry, you know, the unit that has access to 1,000,000 skills already, gets to be able to use it. I don't know what to say. I genuinely don't know what to say. So yeah, Cavs is the weakest movement. What's the second most weak movement? It's obviously armored. Armored units don't exactly suck, but they are lacking in option. Every time we get an armored unit, I'm typically just rolling my eyes because they typically don't have anything interesting that I can really talk about. Like, oh, Fallen Tiki, just build her like Legendary Tiki, a unit that has come out like 6 months before her. Wow, that's unique. But it's the most effective way to build her. What about Serdar? Well, his base kit is fine, why would you change it? You see what I mean? It's very boring, very straightforward. There's just like no way to really deviate from them, and if you deviate from them, you pay for it. Like, oh, Serdar is a mixed tank, I'm gonna run Fortress Def Res. Well, you don't have DC, so you're just going to get pelted down until Luna procs and you die. The end. Welcome to Armored Unit, everybody. So, the best way to put it is, Cav units are more or less dead content, and then Armored units are somewhat good units. Some of them are pretty good, like Fallen Tiki is just a better version of Legendary Tiki, who is quite good. Trying to think at the top of my head. There's Kangas. That's kind of it. Oh yeah, I guess there's also Idun because she shuts down debuffs, which is quite welcome. So yeah. That's iffy. So the fact that you have an effective against both of them is not great. Then you add to the fact that your effective against is for melee units, which means that there's literally an inheritable weapon for this. You're not off to a good start. If your weapon is against Cav, sure, but the thing is, Cavs are not consistent. Armored units are consistent, but you can just run Armor Smasher on any unit and they'll have more stats because they're not dancers. And then you can run a dancers to, you know, support them if that's really what you need. Not really ideal. Micaiah at least hits res, not to mention, unlike Fina, she also has utility beyond that. She basically, instead of Vantage, she shuts down Vantage, which is quite good to begin with. But then you add the fact that she has 34 res. To put this in perspective, Serdar has 33 res. So if you have a plus 10 Micaiah, or even, I guess to some extent you could go with, I believe, plus 6 Micaiah, and have 10 Dragon Flowers on her, you would be able to deploy a plus 10 Serdar. If you're able to deploy Serdar, you're basically able to deploy everything. Except, you know, in AR where you have higher res unit like Une and so on. So you have a dancer that can provide ploy, the same effectiveness, shuts down Vantage, and has basically almost the same amount of damage because... or no, she has more damage because she hits res. Okay, so that's a yikes. Sure, Fina can typically hit twice, but typically you're supposed to one-shot with an effective weapon. Especially since you're a dancer, since you can't really afford to take hits, can you? This is why I consider Fina to be very iffy. Not to mention, here's where Olivia comes in. If you're talking about bulk, Olivia is just better, especially considering you have dragon flowers. Here, just take a gander at this. Both units are basically built to take hits and provide supports. This is basically the build I run on my own Olivia, for the most part. I run Safeguard, but I plan on switching to Barrier Blade. This is going to be in a while, though. So, yeah. 46 def, 45 res versus 45 def, 41 res. 1 less def, 4 less res, 3 more health. Now, a lot of people don't seem to realize why I consider dancers with high bulk to be so good. Let me explain very quickly for those who don't realize. A dancer doesn't typically need to fight. If it needs to fight, it has to have a really solid stat line. Brookoot is a great example. And if you are not falling under that kind of category of the type of stat line that Nephany has, the type of stat line that Brookoot has, then you're better off building on your def and res, because at that point, what you can do is take more precarious situation to dance. For example, my Olivia is so bulky, I can just use her to shield a gem key while dancing it. So she can be used as a choke point. Because she can be used as a choke point, my gem key becomes safe, and I know Olivia is able to, you know, just take it. 45 as your lowest, you know, of the two between def and res makes it really hard to die. You have 92 bulk. The enemy needs to have 92 attack to one-shot you. That is a rare thing indeed. The one thing that Fina does have that's a bit better with this set, however, is 3 more speed. This is really it, though. And even then, 39 speed is typically enough to at least prevent double that are not with Bolt Fighter, and even if you get double, typically you're gonna be fine. Because when you get double, those types of units don't really have enough attack to do a whole lot of damage, though that depends. Obviously there are cases like Ira and Nyla, which, yes, they have low attack, but it doesn't matter because they proc for 30, so, you know. It comes down to the situation, but more often than not, I do think Olivia will do a better job than Fina. Not to mention, Fina is behind a paywall of 2,200 orbs on average, while Olivia is a free unit, essentially, in the 3-4 star pool, and literally you can get 2 copies for free on those special maps that are daily that no one remembers. So it's really hard for me to really say, like, yeah, Fina's worth it. Micaiah does her weapon jobs better, I feel like, outside of Vantage. But if you want to use Vantage, you need No See Disrupt in DC and AR. And while it's okay in AA as a Serdar counter, it's nothing that, you know, is unique to her. This is why I say she's fairly underwhelming and actually the worst unit of the banner. Though I will say one positive she does have, if you take Def or Res Plus, you can push your BST up by 1 point, which means 165 BST after the first merge, which means you don't really need Red Dole Infantry, unlike Olivia. But that's all the positive I can say, so... At that point, just build Olivia. Unless you want an offensive dancer, which... I don't get that personally, but, you know. You do what you do. Next up is Sirius. Yeah, I was expecting that... I was not expecting that either. I was expecting to put Norn as the second one, but... Well, as a matter of fact, I'd say Norn is probably the best unit of the banner if you have a Brave Lucina to support her. More on that after this one, though. Let's talk about Sirius first. Now, Sable Lance is a fantastic weapon. It's very similar to Brave Eliwood's weapon. They basically ditched the Dragon and Beast Killer for cooldown -1. Cooldown -1 allows Sirius to be a better Gale Force unit because he can actually run Desperation. This is something you cannot do with Brave Eliwood, and it's honestly his biggest weakness. Though you can still use Mystic Boost to allow you to, you know, regain the HP you lose over time. Still, overall, Sirius has a better time with it because not only does he have less base attack, which, ironically enough, is a boon in this case, but he also has better def. Not by much, that is, but, you know. And also, cooldown -1 is very good with Gale Force, as previously mentioned. Low attack speed is honestly quite good. It's mostly good on units that you're going to use as Gale Force units, though he really doesn't need it. Desperation does the same thing at that point. So why bother? That said, low attack speed can be better used on a unit, say, like Brave Eliwood. Though Brave Eliwood himself doesn't really need it. It's typically the type of skill you'll put in the B slot on a Gale Force unit that wish to take less damage and slow attack, and has a shaky amount of speed, ends the low speed part. A good example would be Wallheart. Wallheart can do a good use of this, unless you have him at already +10, in which case it's typically not exactly needed, if you use Wallheart properly, that is. Though Wallheart can definitely be a great user of it. After all, Wallheart is actually one of the better free unit you can actually build. Still, obviously this is on a 5-star exclusive, and he's going to remain a 5-star exclusive, so unless you really merge Wallheart, it's not exactly worth it. It would also be good on Death Knight if it wasn't for the fact that it negates buffs, or rather deletes them entirely, so his weapon cannot take effect. That's a shame, but it is what it is. But yeah, essentially this is not bad. Though I will say his kit is depressing to look at. You basically get 3 speed from his B skill, 6 from his A, 4 from his weapon. What do you need 50 speed for? What do you need 56 speed for? Because that's what he hits with own cav. Again, I repeat this. What is the point? There's none. There really isn't. It's quite disheartening, really. I don't understand this, because if you had something like, let's say, maybe 2 points of speed pushed into res, 2 points of def pushed into res, with attack res solo as his A slot, this would be quite good. You'd be sitting on 33 attack, 26 res. His weapon would push that to 37 def and 30 res. Or his buff would push that to 43 def and 36 res. Do you see what I'm getting at? As far as his speed goes, even losing 2 points of speed doesn't really matter. His weapon would push that back to 39, and the own cav would push that to 45 speed. And that's without an A slot, that's without the B slot, and so on and so forth. So, you know, if basically you had 2, even maybe 4 less speed with no attack speed, it would be completely fine at that point. But hey, that's just how I feel. Anyway, let's talk about comparison. This should not come as a shock. Really, like I said, it is basically like Eliwood with the attack and speed flipped. And a bit more def at the cost of some res. It's not exactly unique, so if you have already taken Eliwood as your free unit like I did, Sirius doesn't bring a whole lot home. Eliwood is still the better of the two because Beast Killer is so hard to get. Even to this day, there are very few Beast Killers in this game. There's Petra, Flora, and Eliwood. So, of course, Eliwood has a lot more value as a result. The Dragon Killer part of his lance is kind of irrelevant though, but still, Beast Killer is quite good. On the other hand, if what you seek is a really good Gale Force unit, Sirius is slightly better as a result. Though there are plenty of units that can fulfill that part. So, I don't know. It's not exactly the type of thing I would say is a must-have. Sirius is a good unit, or rather has a good stat line, but as far as Gale Force unit goes, if you really want one, you should focus on getting a copy of Rid, not Sirius. Granted, Rid is a red unit, and this is a blue unit, and as far as blue units are concerned, there's not a whole lot of units that are really worth mentioning. That said, parry does indeed exist, and parry does indeed have cooldown -1 and a 4 across the board weapon. Parry is also a 3 to 4 star unit, so yeah, though one of the thing is that Sirius has a really good amount of def, parry is a bit struggling on that regard, so it's a bit iffy, and also Sirius's weapon works at full HP or any HP really. That is not the case with parry, however. But Sirius also has a drawback with his weapon, and that is the fact that he can't have allies buffing him if he has to tank on the enemy phase. Because basically, if you take the square formation with double own cav and double fortify cav, so you get 6 across the board, right? Well, you're next to allies, which therefore means you lose the 4 across the board. That can be a weakness of its own, because then you can't really maintain your buffs in some cases, which can indeed backfire. So both of them have their own drawbacks. It's kind of weird how you have good units with drawbacks. Because I'm gonna be honest, after Fallen Corin, Legendary Ulm, and so on, this is a nice change. Anyway, as far as build is concerned, this should not really come as a surprise. See, this is also what I meant by he has too much speed. At plus 10, you're already at 48 speed. Sable Lens pushes that by 4, so you're at 52 speed. Again, do you really need that? No, you don't. That's why I said if you had some of his speed, just push into res. Same thing with def. Like, as you can see, he has 50 def here. At the very least, though, he also hits 36 res. So that's not bad. But imagine if 4 def, 4 speed went into res, right? That would be 44 res. 44 res and 46 def. That would make him quite an interesting unit, really. At least, as far as, you know, bulk is concerned. At that point, desperation might not even be needed. But yeah. That was quick, but it's kind of obvious. Gale Force is just how it is. Next up is Norn. Now, do keep in mind, I consider Nagi and Norn to be about equal. Though I'm considering Norn with not legendary, Brave Lucina support. Brave Lucina cannot really support a huge amount of unit to the point where they become broken. But Norn is definitely one of such unit that actually works. As far as archers are concerned, I do genuinely think there are 2 archers that can be used, that Brave Lucina can be used in conjunction with to truly work really well with a close counter build. Norn is obviously one of them. As for the other one, I'm gonna keep that to myself. I'm going to try to showcase him if I do actually get the right IVs, since, well, I'm gonna try to merge him once he comes back. Anyway. Brazen Speed Def. I'm actually kind of glad to see that in the game, if I'm being honest. It has very niche uses, but considering Norn might actually demote, this could be quite good. I do genuinely hope Norn do get demoted for everyone's sake, but I will say this. It is a 168 BST archer. If you think that the kit alone means that she's going to get demoted, do not trust what your heart is telling you, dude. I'm just being honest. I'm just being completely honest. No, if you want to really look at this in a way that's logical, Bantu was the demote. It happened before the banner started, but he already was the demote. And Norn has 168 BST, like I said. Yes, her stat line doesn't look great, but it's still quite good. The other unit that can be used with Brave Lucina does outclass her, but he's definitely a bit niche, and Norn is more of a multi-phase unit, whereas the other unit is more a enemy phase heavy unit. So, as a result, it's quite easy to say that Norn is a bit more versatile, or not really versatile, flexible would be the correct term. As everything that Norn does, well, the other unit can do more or less better. Though it comes down to your team comp a lot. Again, look forward to when I can actually showcase it. Anyway, so let's go comparison-wise. I decided to take Gem Key because that's what most people would expect me to do. And sure enough, Gem Key absolutely destroys her in def, and not in def, in attack and in speed. I say in attack and speed because, frankly, Gem Key's stat line can easily break the 47 speed without buffs. And honestly, any point that you have over 47 is kind of wasted and would be better placed elsewhere. So the fact that he can already hit 47 without with an ace. No, without an ace slot. Well, the speed that Norn gets is kind of just wasted. So basically, it's almost as if they were tied in a way. And he has more attack. So, yeah. They have more or less the same def, more or less the same HP, but here's the thing that truly makes Norn good is the fact that she is a good mixed tank unit. 36-32 is quite good. And also, this can be considered as a boon, but Gem Key would refine his bow to speed if he needs the speed. Norn doesn't really need to do that, she already has enough speed. So you can actually refine it for, say, res, and in which case the gap goes from 9 to 13 in res. So, yeah. Now, let's talk about build. Again, do keep in mind this is with Brave Lucina in mind. So, before we get started, for the two people who wonder why I'm using Attack Def +2 instead of Attack Def Bond, it's quite simple. The Def and Res are even. If I were to use Attack Def Bond, well, it would do nothing against dragons because my Def would go over my Res and therefore dragons would just target my Res. So there's that. That would not help me on that regard. It doesn't help against caster. It helps against physical units, but frankly, the main thing is really that you get 5 attack from the Attack Def Bond. However, the thing that Attack Def +2 does is allow Norn to be a player phase and an enemy phase in one. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Again, Brave Lucina is in that type of team. So, let's go with basics. If the enemy loses 3 attack and 3 def, that basically pushes her attack by 3 and they're def and res by 3. So 59, 46, 46, 46. Okay. Do keep in mind, this also shuts down attack buff and def buff, which makes her indirectly tanker and able to do more damage easier. Again, that's pretty good. Attack ploy, if hitting the target, will actually get your bulk essentially working as a 51 def and res unit. That's insane. Especially considering you're shutting down attack buffs, right? So, that's quite good already. But, because of Brave Lucina, your 59 attack might not look too impressive. However, you have to realize, say you're fighting someone with 40 defense, and you let them hit you while Brave Lucina is nearby, you hit back for 19. That seems weak. However, then you realize the fact that because of Brave Lucina, you get instant Bonfire. Now, Bonfire would basically take your 43 def, and give you an extra 21 damage. You're already doing 40 damage at that point to a 40 def unit. Even if you're the one initiating, the result is the same. You hit, get hit, proc. As long as you double them, of course. So, that's quite good. And again, if you double the 40 def unit, well, that's 19 times 2 plus 21. 59 damage is typically a kill. And 46 speed is, well, quite good at that. Not to mention, Brave Lucina pushes it up to 49. Oh, actually, yes, you do 23 damage from Bonfire. I'm stupid. You also essentially have 62 attack because of low attack def. So, let me just go through the stats again. You essentially end up with 62 attack, 49 speed, with attack ploy considered 54 def and 54 def and 54 res. Blah. So yeah, you end up being extremely tanky, and 62 attack on top of having a burst of 23 damage is quite good. This is the tankier version. Now, for a more aggressive version, this is the exploding variant. If you really think that you're going to struggle with one-shotting with Norn, I will say you one thing. You won't. Again, this is basically the same stat line, so just without the low attack def. So just had 3 across the board and 5 def res because of attack blow if the enemy is hit by it. So 59 attack, 49 speed, 51 def and res. Okay, that's still not bad. It's just that now buffs will actually get in the way sometimes. And because of special fighter, special spiral, sorry, and the fact that you have Brave Lucina, you get 2 charge from special spiral after every fight you proc. So Ignace is effectively 2 charges. You get hit. That's 2 charges because of Brave Lucina, and then you proc Ignace. Even the first fight will typically go this way, get hit, hit back, proc. And then it becomes just consistent. Even if you have to deal with Bold Fighter at that point, it doesn't matter. Obviously, you're using Short Bow to do more damage, because at that point you don't really need cooldown -1. Therefore, Ignace here is, well, to put it simply, doing 36 damage. Yep, that's right. With Short Bow, that's 46 proc damage, and you're proccing it after the start of every fight. This is good in every single mode. It does not rely on her having anyone next to her, and it's quite potent. Her stat line is also quite good, so what can I say? Ophelia is a problem still in AR, just because she can hit like 70 plus attack. But other than this, she typically will do quite fine. Do keep in mind though, Lelaina will be a problem because of chill res in her weapon, especially since she's typically paired up with Ophelia. That said, this is still quite good. This is why I said that Norni is quite decent. And yes, there is indeed a unit that does all of this better outside of AR. Because in AR, well, it doesn't work nearly as well. Anyway, next up is Nagi, the quote-unquote prize of the banner. I say quote-unquote because, frankly, they essentially tailor-made her for AR. This is quite a shame, because in my case I really like Nagi, and I wanted to use her in modes that I actually enjoyed, and AR is not one of them. And this is not because I find the mode too difficult or anything of the sort. Get that out of your mind. It's just, it's not enjoyable. It's always the same team comps, it's always the same maps, it's always the same bullshit. It's not interesting. Every map is a legendary Azura or two. Like, for example, every map is an Ophelia. It's just boring after a while. So, I just couldn't be bothered. Now, this weapon has 5 effects. Cooldown -1, Dragon Killer, Raven Tome, of course, and AoE Killer for some reason, and Adaptability. Obviously, the two, well, there's 3 individual this is meant to target. This is meant to allow you to one-shot Alm. This is meant to allow you to one-shot Ophelia. And this is meant for you to one-shot Fallen Corin. 3 very, very annoying units. Now, while the effort is commendable, it doesn't really fix anything. Let me explain. One of the biggest things that you typically see with Ophelia, which happens, I'd say, 50% of the time, is that Ophelia is typically accompanied by a Lelaina. This is because Lelaina's weapon has chill res, because Nagi has the highest amount of res typically on your team, because base 41 res is literally the highest. In fact, with a res super boon that she actually has for some reason, unlike Winter Fa, well, she actually can reach the highest amount of base res of the entire game. So, yeah. Obviously, she's going to get smashed by chill res. So, already there, that's not too good, but it's fine. Chill res doesn't do anything again for Alm. It does do something for Fallen Corin, but it doesn't matter. She one-shots. But here's the issue. Lelaina herself. Now, Lelaina, you typically would not try to bait her with Nagi, of course. So, 37 attack, the weapon pushes that by 16, so 53. DB 6, because refine and then a slot, that's 65 attack, right? 65 attack with combat triangle advantage is 78 attack. This is not considering attack plus, this is not considering merges, this is not considering dragon flowers. 78 attack is 27 times 2. Chill res pushes that to 34 times 2. You can have buffs, you can have A slots, but Nagi is a very unflexible unit, so typically if Lelaina hits you, you die. Here is the issue. A lot of the time, you will try to just bait Ophelia, and you think you'll be safe, but Lelaina will have a rally. She's going to rally Ophelia, then get danced by legendary Azura, therefore getting 3 movement and able to hit the very same place Ophelia can hit. Do you see the problem now? She dies as a result. And this will happen consistently. So, that's kind of a iffy place already. Now, that said, she can typically one-shot Alm, even with Soul, even on Merge, though I believe with attack, she requires attack plus if you want to be consistent at no merges against a plus 10 Alm with mirror impact and buffs. Yes, I did do calcs. She typically can deal with it. So, at least there's that. And there's the fact that because of Special Fighter and the fact that her weapon has cooldown -1, which is a rarity for dragons, well, she can just keep spamming Soul. At least there's that. The issue with dragons is that they live and die from their weapon. If they don't have a pref, they might as well be dead on arrival. If they do have a pref, well, not all of them are made equal. And some of them become irrelevant almost immediately. Breath of Blight is a good example, especially now that Sophis is a thing. Although, Garen does still have the niche of being able to be in a dragon team while being able to protect the other dragon from it, while also be a free unit, unlike Sophis. So at least there's this. It's kind of similar with Nagi. Nagi is what we called a... I believe Rata refers to it as a format assassin. For those who are, you know, more or less aware of how Yu-Gi-Oh works, Blue Eyes was a format assassin. Blue Eyes got support that allowed them to shut down every single top-tier deck. So because they became an anti-meta deck, everyone ended up either using the meta deck or that deck. So as a result, guess what? The finals of the World Championship of that year ended up being Blue Eyes versus Blue Eyes because the meta got destroyed by this meta-destroying deck. Because if you were not using the meta, well, you were getting destroyed by the meta. If you were using the meta, you were getting destroyed by Blue Eyes. So, okay. It's like the deck was tailor-made to screw with the other three main decks at the time. This is the same kind of logic here. Nagi hard counters three very oppressive units. So, in this format, she is considered a very good unit. Outside of the issue with Lelaina, of course. But yeah, she's considered a fairly solid unit as a result. Here, however, here is where lies the problem. Once the format moves to different units, and Ophelia/Legendary Alm and Fallen Corin falls out of favor, she too will fall out of favor, because the meta will have shifted to different units. Which is kind of a problem, because if you try to change her weapon, she is extremely unflexible. Trying to change her weapon is, well... it's possible, but it requires +10. Otherwise, you can't really make up for the fact that her stat line is so min-maxed in favor to deal with specific units. It's a shame, really, but it's kind of just what it is. There's nothing we can really do about it. But yeah, like I said, she's quite good with those three units. Let's talk about comparison, shall we? Yeah, she's basically Winterfell with less speed, 2 more def, 2 more attack, sorry, 3 more def, same res, and 1 more HP, at the cost of like 7 speed. Here is the thing though, Winterfell is actually flexible. That 7 speed allows her to change to any kind of weapon, like Dark Breath for example, and be completely fine. If you want to do a speed build with Nagi, which honestly is the build that's good at +10, it does kind of require you to, well, to put it simply, to get a speed plus, +10er, and use lightning breath and no other breath. So it's either lightning breath or pref. You don't have any other chance. At least if you want DC. If you're fine losing DC, that's another conversation entirely, but she'll be overall weaker than both variants, so it's not exactly something I would consider. Winterfell, on the other hand, because she has that 7 extra bit of speed, you can just go, say, speed plus, and then have a buff in speed. You're at 35 speed already. Attack speed bond, you're at 40 speed already. This is unmerged. You can refine to speed if you need. That's 43 speed. As you can see, speed doesn't really become a problem as a result, and is very easily, fixed. I can run Dark Breath with this encounter and be completely fine. That's not exactly something Nagi can do, sadly enough. So, while the set I will showcase is good on Nagi and can definitely work as an alternative to her breath, I will say in complete honesty, Winterfa is better at that. However, Nagi is in the pool permanently, so I suppose there's that. Now, Serdar. Serdar is the other unit that is very min-maxed. 2 more attack, 4 more HP, 4 more death, at a cost of 8 res. The thing is, Serdar's weapon is good everywhere. Sinmara is a fantastic tool for cheerleading. It's a fantastic tool to pick out unit that you actually struggle with because you, say, did not bring a combat triangle advantage or something like that in AA. He's quite good even in Abyssal map if what you want to work with is a tank team. He's just really good in every mode except, honestly, AR to some extent. Though even in AR I would consider him to be fairly decent. So, yeah, if you already have a Serdar at high merges, Nagi is kind of not worth it outside of if you really want to have a hard counter to Ophelia and Ulm, as well as Fallen Corin. That's kind of what you're getting with the unit. You're getting a hard counter to 3 very important units, which is good, but at the same time it's boring and uninteresting, especially considering Norn is able to kill literally everything she comes across, as you've seen with the build I've showcased before with the shortbow set. So, it's really hard for me to really recommend Nagi, but again, if you really like AR, that's a completely different matter. She's almost a must-have to some extent. That said, being armored, while I will not bring the stupid argument I keep hearing of, well, you will struggle to break the pots with her. Yeah, dumbass, she's a tank. You don't typically use the tank to break the urns, you take a ranged unit for that. It's such a dumb argument in general. But, yeah. Moving on to build. As you can see, there's not a whole lot you can do that is really deviating with the set. Soul is really good because you can just take the AoE, then take a hit from Ophelia, then one-shot her and heal yourself back to full as a result. Same thing with Ulm, same thing with Fallen Corin, which essentially negates the damage you take. This is why it's quite good. Fierce Stance is the ideal seal slot for her. It's not ideal for tanking per se, but it ensured that you get the one shot on even a plus 10 mirror impact all buffed in res. So it makes it quite consistent. Now if you're wondering, even at plus 0 you are consistent with this. I verified, you will one shot even a plus 10 Ulm with this because of the combat advantage you have against colorless units. Attack Roy is decent to also provide some more bulk overall. You can also run Attack Smoke, but I feel like Attack Roy is a bit better because you can just direct where you want the stat loss to be, which is not bad. So overall, I do think she's decent with this set, and as you can see, there's really nothing else you can really do with Ethereal Breath. Ethereal Breath is just the type of weapon that really doesn't give you a lot of room to experiment. Do also understand that despite having a Raven Tome effect in her breath, she has no access to Nosy Disrupt, so do not expect her to do anything against staffs units despite having 50 plus res. Yeah, it sounds about as depressing as it sounds. Well, it is what it is. The other set, as I said, is a plus 10 set. This does not work at low merges. However, this pushes your speed to 45, and if you deploy the enemy, 50. If you deploy the enemy, it can work on lower merges, but that's a bit inconsistent, so do keep that in mind. Unless you have a great grasp of on how the AI works or move, do not go with this. I'll just say that. But yeah, Lightning Gruff is really the main one. It allows you to have more or less the same attack-ish, while also providing you with DC. You do, however, get an extra cooldown charge to deal with. However, because you get 2 charges at a time, it doesn't really matter for Aether. So, it's not so bad. It basically makes it a 3 cooldown, as long as the enemy doesn't have guard and other such things. Which, okay, that's not too bad. But yeah, like I said, armored units are fairly boring. Cav and armored units are quite weak, and I was quite disgusted to see the fact that the BST for armored units had only improved by 5. You see, why in the hell would you use an armored unit? I'm asking you this question because an infantry unit has 172 BST, and an armored unit has 179 BST, if neither of them are trainee. This is a BST difference of 7. Do you really think losing 1 movement and access to like 10 really strong exclusive skill to infantry, or skills that are shared with infantry with other movements that are not armored, losing all of this and 1 movement, do you think it's worth it for 7 extra points of stats? The answer is absolutely not. I genuinely do think a normal armored unit should have 185 BST. At this point, it's borderline required. I know it's not a good idea to always raise BST, but for armored units in general, the fact of the matter is they have 3 or actually technically 4 exclusive skill. I'm just not really counting Werefighter for, you know, offense. Then you have Armor March, which requires you to have someone next to you glued to you, which can work in Arena and other modes. However, in AR, which you don't want to be next to other allies, it's nothing but a problem for you. So it's really hard for me to just look at an armored unit with the newest highest BST for a non-trainee unit, and it's only a +5, just like infantry, just like cav, just like flyers. It is lazy. Lazy as all hell. So, yeah. Moving on to Bantu, I did say I was going to cover him. Now, Bantu is... I did not write the rarity at which you got. This was because it was at 4 AM. I had an exam, which happened today. For the 2 people that actually care about my student life, I passed with 90%. So cool. It was a... it's basically us doing schematics for pieces. So, yeah. That's all there is to it, really. So, Bantu is a veteran infantry dragon unit. This is why he has 168 BST instead of 172. Honestly, this is still not bad. Because I'm gonna be completely honest. Boy, oh boy. When I saw him, I was like, he's gonna be veteran. He's absolutely gonna be veteran. I was expecting his BST to be 163. So the fact that it wasn't was nice to me. He still essentially has the same BST as a 163 BST because of flowers. But other than that, I mean, it's not bad. However, since he doesn't have a pref, and we've already went over how it feels for dragons to not have a pref, how they live and die with their prefs. Yeah, this is a bit iffy, isn't it? Fierce Stance is available at 4-star, so this is a new skill to add to the pool. That's quite welcome. I would like to have new 3 to 4-star unit like this added periodically. I would definitely love to see Sturdy Blow and Mirror Strike available in 3 to 4-star unit. I do know Sturdy Blow is technically available in a 3 to 4-star unit, being a Fina, however it requires you to 5-star her for the skill. That sucks, especially considering how old the skill is. Really, it should be a lot more available at this point, shouldn't it? But yeah, other than this, I doubt they're going to do this all too often, but frankly they should. They should do that with any new banner. I'm not considering seasonals. Besides, seasonals are boring, and it just would not work to have them added to the pool anyway. So, yeah, I would like that on every new hero banner. Because then you'd have, you know, a new unit added immediately. So even if they don't demote anyone, well, they added someone to the pool. There's no complaints at that point. But yeah, Bantu, his kit is quite boring. It's kind of depressing, the fact that, well, first off, Tiki's Guardian, but also a Fire Dragon is using Dark Breath for some reason. I mean, don't get me wrong, Dark Breath is one of the better breaths that are inimitable. But like, how about making a pref that's based on Fire Dragon Breath? I don't know, man. But yeah, other than this, let's go to the comparison. Now, this is Garen. And as you can notice, Garen has the same HP, more attack, same def, and more res. This is one of the reasons why I always cringe whenever I see people try to invest on a mixed tank Bantu. Garen is able to more or less do the same thing, so this is nothing new. Honestly, if you really want to do something interesting with Bantu, you will want to invest in his speed. Do keep in mind that Garen got like... he was in the GHB Revival, wasn't he? So I believe you can plus 10 him with 1.35k Grail, rather, which is quite cheap, honestly. The fact is you can plus 5 him for basically free, I believe, or plus 4. No, plus 4. So yeah, and on top of that, Garen, again, like I said, has the niche of being one of these units that are a bit more unique in the sense that he can actually be in a dragon team and protect the dragons from Fortune and dragon killers. So he has at least that as a niche, and he has the stat, aka the bulk, to really work with it as well. So with that out of the way, let's talk about builds. Obviously, like I said, you should be building his speed up. Brazen attack speed allows him to get 65 attack and 48 speed, which is quite good. Also 45 def and 40 res. He becomes quite a good null C disrupt unit, but also a good null follow-up unit. Really, it's interchangeable here. Dark Breath with Res Smoke means that he debuffs 7 attack, speed, and res, which means you can combo him with Matthew or Saizo quite well. A bit less so with Saizo and Matthew, or rather with Saizo, because Saizo doesn't really care about the res to some extent, until you realize that res is kind of one of his weaknesses and this helps him patch it. But it doesn't really provide def, which is a more key stats for him. Still, this works pretty well, I'd say. And well, if you, again, work on his speed with Brazen Attack speed, which he can easily get into without dying. Well, there you go. He's quite a good unit. I don't think he's going to be a good AR tank because he's red. Obviously, Ophelia still exists after all. But, yeah. Pretty straightforward. It is Bantu after all. Kind of hard to say much considering he doesn't have a pref. But yeah, in conclusion, this is the wrong fucking conclusion thing. Yeah, you can tell this is 4 AM. Actually 5 AM. But yeah, in conclusion, this banner is hit or miss. Sirius is okay, Nagi is okay, Fina is not good. Norn is quite good if you have the correct support for her, because she's really built for it. And Bantu is an okay unit to add to the pool. At the end of the day, it's still 170 BST infantry for Arena. So, if you do like the guy, he's great as a cheerleader in Arena. So yeah, that is about all I have to say about this banner. And, well, hopefully this was informative. I'll be seeing you when I stream later today, after I sleep for like 5 hours. Oh my god. Have a good night, y'all. See ya.